Hello! Thank you so much for being here today. We are going to have a ton of fun, and I'm going to show you how to paint watercolor skeletons. So we're not actually going to be painting the skeletons themselves. We are going to be painting around them. So our number one tool we're going to need for this painting is masking fluid. You're also going to need a nice sketching pencil as well. So now to sketch your skeleton, I would look at a reference picture if you're not familiar with the bones in the body. But it doesn't have to be super accurate, but you don't want certain bones missing. Like, don't forget the pelvic bone and the shape it is, and don't forget that the lower leg has 2 bones, same with the lower arm. If you've seen my video about masking fluid, you already know this trick, but just make sure to put dish soap on your brush before dipping into the masking fluid. You don't have to wait for it to dry, and you can apply the masking fluid right away. So I'm going through and following my lines with the masking fluid. Once again, this doesn't have to be perfect. The point with masking fluid is that you're saving the white paper, okay? So if we save too much white paper, we can go through and clean it up a bit with more paint afterward, but you can't bring the white back. The carpals or tarsals in the hands and the foot are smaller bones, and so with the masking fluid, I'm kind of just doing little dots to represent that. It will turn out really great once we have the paint over the top of it. After you've applied all of the masking fluid, make sure it very thoroughly dries before you apply paint. The paint colors I'll be using for this piece are Payne's Gray, Quinacridone Violet, and Opera Rose by Winsor Newton. So I'm going to create kind of a box around the skeletons, and so the first key is to really just make sure they're fully covered and that the paint edges stay wet as I'm moving. So moving quickly while everything stays wet, get the first layer down, and then with the wet on wet technique, I can go in and add more purples and pinks around the skeletons. Make sure your paint dries completely before you start to remove the masking fluid, or you will smear the paint into these perfect white spaces that you are now revealing. So I just use my finger to remove the masking fluid, but you can use an eraser, a cloth, or really whatever you like that doesn't disturb the paint, but also gets the masking fluid off. Okay, so we've saved all of that beautiful white space, but they look a little messy, right? So now I'm going through with Payne's Gray and I'm going to clean up the edges. But we don't want super harsh lines, and so then I go back through with a watery brush and really smooth out and feather out those lines. So right here you'll see I make a tiny mistake. I did take anatomy and physiology in school, and I just totally forgot that I had added a sternum there and just made it one continuous spine. But later on, I fixed that with my X-Acto knife trick, which is also another video I have on my channel too. So not to worry, by the end there will be a sternum on that skeleton. So some of the bones are a little too thick, which is totally fine. We wanted to save white space, which we did. So now I'm able to go back with the Payne's Gray and make them a little thinner, make everything look a little bit nicer. Masking fluid is not always super accurate, and so if we can save more white space and then clean it up later, that's usually our best bet. The more white space we save, the more we have to work with later. And now I feather out those super harsh lines with a watery brush. Most of the lines and details I'm adding are really for distinction. Like I want the bones to be separate, and for the fingers are made up of a ton of tiny bones, and as well as the hand. And so you just don't want it to be a big blob, but you don't necessarily need to study an actual skeletal hand and get everything exactly perfect, right? So this is just for fun. It's just a painting. Don't expect it to be anatomically accurate. So for the area where the eyes are, the eye sockets, right? The holes, the black spaces, they kind of slant upward and inward. And I feel like it's easier to outline exactly where you want to go and then fill it in so that they are even and you don't make them bigger than you want them to be on accident. The nose is like an upside down heart, but with a lot more space in the center. So like a heart that's broken almost with a straight line. For the teeth, I wanted to keep it super simple, so I did black along the edges and then just did a bunch of U shapes. And I did the same thing along the bottom, but upside down U's, and then filled in the space between them with paint. So now I'll show you that again with the outgoing skeleton, the extrovert skeleton, but sped up and kind of from a whole picture view. And our little happy skeletons are finished. Now the question is, are you the one that's dancing or are you the one that's chill? I'm usually in between. But I am so glad you guys followed along with this tutorial today. Follow me here on YouTube for more watercolor tutorials, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.